Good evening, everyone. Welcome back to Panchatantra Planet's another episode of panel discussion based on the hot topic, new trends in CBSE rationalized curriculum and assessment for teachers and school administrators. Today, we have with us a wonderful panel of edu leaders of our country, Mrs. Jyoti Arora, Principal, Mount Abu Public School, Delhi, Mr. Unnikrishnan, Principal, Benchmarks International School, Malappuram, Kerala, Mrs. Srividya Mauli, Principal, TBS Academy, Hosur, Tamil Nadu, and Mr. Suresh, the moderator of the session, is the Vice Principal of Private International English School, Abu Dhabi, UAE. These people are here to help us to understand better the revised curriculum and assessment structure of CBSE. Today's moderator of the session is Mr. Suresh, Vice Principal of Private International English School, Abu Dhabi. He's a renowned public speaker, proved his efficacy to lead discussions and debate at various international platforms. I would like to invite Suresh sir to take over the session. Sir, please.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much, sir. Hope I am audible.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Hearty welcome to Panchatantra Planet webinar series episode number 4. The time chosen for this program is quite unique. Lockdown, quarantine, social distancing, etc. has become a part of the active vocabulary of every common man. Uncertainty and ambiguity are overshadowing the spirit of life. COVID-19 continues untamed across the world. One of the most affected aspects of social life is education. Teaching and assessment have started their voyage across the troubled waters, looking for continual paradigms for sorry for the technical glitch, the student community. Boards of education, together with the insightful educators, have been racking their brains to come up with the best effective measures. Thus, Central Board of Secondary Education has again added much meaning and much more beauty to the curriculum as well as the pattern of assessment. Percolating the intricacies of this concept has been taken up as the social responsibility of Panchatantra Planet, a responsive compendium of veterans and visionaries in the field of education, and we are here to be a part of this panel discussion. I deem it my great privilege to offer, on behalf of Panchatantra Planet, a convivial welcome to our proud panelists and all other committed educators who are attending this discussion. Our proud panelists are panelist number 1, Mrs. Jyoti Arora, Principal, Mount Abu Public School, New Delhi. Madam is a National Best Teacher Awardee for 2020 and is a member of the governing body of the CBSE. Mr. Unnikrishnan, panelist number 2, is the Principal of Benchmark International School, Mancheri. Mancheri is a town in Malappuram district, Kerala. I have the technical glitch continuing. Yeah. Sir is the current president of the Confederation of Kerala Sahodaya School Committees. Sir is also a National Best Teacher Awardee for 2012. Panelist number 3, Mrs. Srividya Mauli, is the principal of TBS Academy, Hosur, Tamil Nadu. Madam is the president of the Hosur Sahodaya School Complex. Join me when I welcome all these veterans in the field of education and leadership. Let's also acknowledge with respect and camaraderie the committed office bearers of Panchatantra Planet. We also welcome our dear inquisitive and responsive audience to this most interactive session on one of the most sought after topics, the new trends in CBSE, rationalized curriculum and assessment. Before we flag off the panel discussion, please lend your ears to Mr. Radhakrishnan C., one of the directors of Panchatantra Planet, who will explain to you all the future plans of Panchatantra Planet. Sir, over to you.
I hope my screen is visible to all. I will be taking 1 minute.
Yes, sir, you are.
Just to talk to you about the upcoming programs. And the first program that I wanted to talk to you is on 11th, Leadership Series. Major General Bhupesh Jain is coming on that day, and he will be speaking to us the military sutras for teachers and school leaders. As we all know, school environment is changing, whether we are prepared for that. So military discipline and also other aspects will help us in boosting school running. About that, he will be talking. That is on 11th August at 4:30 p.m. Then we have a discussion series with a Sri Chandrachud Ghosh, who wrote Conundrum on Subhash Chandra Bose disappearance and all. And here what I wanted to tell you is, we are going to call 6 students to interact with him. So there is an opportunity for each and every school leader attending this session. It is first come, first served. We will be selecting 6 students to interact with him. And for interacting with him, these 6 students must read his book. That is Conundrum, Subhash Bose Life After Death. This book is available on Amazon. It costs 580 rupees. So those who are interested, they can contact me. My number is over here. And first come, first served. This will be on 18th August at 4:30 p.m. Then the third important program is on early childhood care and education. You know, a lot of recent developments are taking place. So as principals and teachers, we should be aware of these developments. A lot of changes are also happening. What are these changes? How these changes are going to influence schooling across the country and across the globe. And we will be discussing on this particular discussion, international practices, implications of NEP 2020, virtual schooling practices in early childhood care and education. And this will be taking place on 14th August, Saturday at 4:30 p.m. So I invite you all for all these 3 programs. Thank you. Over to Suresh sir, the moderator.
Thank you. Thank you very much, sir. We are eagerly waiting for joining your future programs. Let's maintain the compendium. That has just started, and let's kickstart the discussion. NEP has, of course, been discussed a lot and at length. Here comes a new term now, SAFAL, Structured Assessment for Analyzing Learning. And that is something newly added. The very term, the acronym SAFAL, speaks a lot about its purpose and its depth. Madam Jyoti Arora, you will of course have a lot more to enlighten this audience on this. Madam, what is the relevance of NEP and SAFAL with regard to the improvement in assessment? Madam, please.
Good evening and very warm greetings to everyone. Thank you so very much for having me here today. And before I speak about whatever I have been told, I would like to admit that I'm not a great speaker, but I'm always open for my discussions and viewpoints on whatever comes new in CBSE. As the governing board member, I have seen CBSE working very proactively towards the vision of the new education policy. And last year, when this policy was rolled out, much has already been talked about it, like Mr. Suresh said. And there were 3-4 very common terms coming into our into our notice. Whenever whosoever was speaking about NEP, that it's a very progressive document, it's a futuristic document, and it envisions India in a very completely different way. So when we use these terms that it's very progressive and futuristic, that means there is a lot which NEP recommends about. So as I just said, that NEP is a very comprehensive framework by MOE to ensure quality of education. If we look at any key feature of NEP, it revolves around to ensure the quality of education in NEP. And SAFAL, which has been just introduced, which is quite new for each one of us. I think this is the first discussion on SAFAL from my side. A lot has to be understood yet, but still we will definitely have a good experience of discussing about this new edition. And when we speak about the relevance of NEP and SAFAL, somehow I feel that this is the first policy of 21st century, and the policy has already proposed the complete revamping and revision of all aspects of everything related to education. You talk about any framework, it talks about the revision and revamping. So it also believes that the purpose of education is not just to prepare students, though we always say that the major purpose of education is to prepare students for the future life, but at the same time, the foremost requirement of any country's education system should be to produce good human beings. And who are termed as good human beings? If they are capable of rational thoughts, if they are full of positive thoughts, if they possess compassion and empathy, and if we could develop scientific temper. So when we speak about all these envisions of NEP, all these requirements of NEP, the major emphasis comes on the assessment system in our schools, which is very, very important to be reassessed and redesigned. So the key focus, if I have to speak about NEP, the key focus is on skill-based and competency-based education system. When we say that we want to develop a system where children grow with competency-based skills, with major focus on the concept clarities, the real life applications, then certainly we need to look into our assessment system, because assessment framework provides that kind of opportunities for children to learn and grow what we are looking at them. So if I have to talk about the relevance between NEP and SAFAL, as stated, that it's the structured assessment for analyzing learning. If we look at these 5 words, I think the meaning is very clear. It does talk about a system which is structured, an assessment framework which is structured in nature and which analyzes the learning, and that is to holistic learning. So if we look at both are revolutionary documents, and both are the very revolutionary programs in the field of education, and both aims at imbibing in students the necessary 21st century skills. Ultimately, we are dealing with 21st century learners. Their requirements are in sync with the 21st century world. And for that, we really need to equip ourselves for their assessments as well, because we identify the fact that every child is very unique in his or her own capabilities. And so a special emphasis must be laid on application-based learning system. Or we need to do away with the rote memorization system, and we need to look into the concept testing system when it comes to assessment. So measurement of student learning outcome is important for the improvement of quality of education. Because one side, if we are talking about improvement of education, improvement in education system, or the quality in education, we cannot just limit ourselves thinking about just pedagogies or the teaching learning processes. Assessment is also very, very important and crucial area to focus upon. So this can be achieved only through a robust kind of, I would say, a tested kind of assessment system, assessment framework, because whatever we introduce, we need to introduce this through a framework. So we really need to have a system which is at par with testing of the children growing with 21st century skills. We really need to have assessment framework that communicates the aim, purpose, and characteristics of our education system. So of the learning assessment, whether we talk about the assessment of an individual or we talk about assessment of the entire group, because ultimately altogether group makes the school system. So as I said before, that CBSE is too much committed to the vision of NEP and bringing in many reforms through variety of programs time to time. There is hardly any day when we do not receive any notification of circular from CBSE. And the idea is to envision the vision statement of NEP, which the policy which recommends reform, the reformation in pedagogies and assessment, and this is all about quality education. And here the special focus of assessment is to help everyone to understand what the assessment is about and what the assessment results mean. It's not just 3 hours examination which will decide that how capable the child is, or towards the end of an year performance, the child will be given 3 hours to prove himself or herself. So to achieve SAFAL, a competency-based framework has been developed through this newly introduced initiative of CBSE, which will include competencies, sub-competencies, and it will also talk about certain development of items which CBSE is in progress with, because I have been attending their meetings back to back. CBSE is inviting skilled teachers, the experienced teachers, to get into the development of these items, because we want our children to grow with literacy, numeracy, science, mathematics, in addition to the languages. And for that, we really need to have different kind of items to test their capabilities. So we really need a system where the major focus is not just on the assessment of their knowledge. It is the assessment of their concepts, their core competencies, and the quality of assessment.
Thank you very much, madam. Actually, what we understood from your words is CBSE's initiative is with a purpose to uplift the quality, the rate of the system of assessment. Okay, instead of going for the simple mere testing of knowledge of our children, CBSE envisages to clearly assess the skill and competencies of our children. Thank you very much. I have one more question.
This is what I want to say. Just would take 30 seconds. This is what I wanted to say. Okay, when we would change our assessment system, then certainly children will grow up with skills, and that exactly we'll look at. We want our children to grow with skills to deal with the future world, and the assessment has to be improved.
Yes.
Sorry if I have crossed the limit.
No, not at all, ma'am. I'll get back to you with the second question again about the different aspect of the topic we have given to you. So, Unikrishnan sir, internal assessment with its continuous and comprehensive nature always impress the teacher in me. We wish to hear more about the changes introduced in the aspect of internal assessment as a part of this special scheme. To be more precise, what are the salient features of the special scheme for internal assessment 2021-22? Sir, please.
Thank you, sir, for this very relevant question with respect to the special scheme for assessment. All of us know that the special scheme of assessment for examination 2021-22 was issued by the Central Board of Secondary Education by their circular number academic 51/2021. It was dated 5th July. Along with this circular, the CBSE has also released another document, the special scheme for internal assessment, practical and project. We all know how the schools carried out the internal assessment last year and uploaded the marks. And the board doesn't want the same uncertainty to happen this year also. And CBSE wants the internal assessment, the practical and the projects to be carried out this year with more credibility and validity. So the board has come out with the special scheme of internal assessment, practical project for 2021-22, and I'm going to discuss on that. Now, all of us know that for grade 9 and 10, the internal assessment in the main subject, that means that the subjects with the theory marks 80 will be 20 marks internal assessment. Out of that, we will have to carry out the assessment for 10 marks during the first term and 10 marks during the second term. And out of these 10 marks, the periodic test will carry 3 marks. The board says that in a year we are supposed to conduct 3 periodic tests minimum. And the multiple assessment means the usual academic activities related to the subjects that we do in the class, the role play, the quiz, the group discussion, blog writing, recitation, debate, skit, art integrated activity, and so on. All these things will together carry 2 marks. The portfolio, if those teachers who have been working during the CCE system would know what a portfolio is. This is a record of all the selected curricular and extracurricular activities of the student of the year, and the portfolio carries 2 marks. And lastly, the subject enrichment activity will carry 3 marks. Subject enrichment activities are meant to enrich the learning of the subjects of the students in the classroom. And this includes the practical work, speaking and listening activities in languages, and so on. And altogether, 3 plus 2 plus 2 plus 3 will come to 10 marks for the first term. And the board says that the art integrated project that was introduced last year by circular number 33/2020, dated 14 May 2020, will continue as a subject enrichment activity this year also. As the theory marks in 10th standard vary, 70, 50, 30. Yes, some of the subjects like a Carnatic music has got only 30 marks in theory, and the remaining will be internal. For such subject, the marks for the internal assessment will also vary. If it is 70 marks for the theory, the internal will be for 30. If 30 marks for the theory, internal will be 70, and so on. And for class 11 and 12, the internal assessment includes class test, UT, unit test, exploratory activities, practicals, and project. I'll just mention quickly about some of the most important, main subjects. For example, mathematics 041, which carries 80 marks theory. The internal assessment will be for 40 marks. 20 marks. Out of that, 10 marks for each term. And in mathematics, I'm talking about the +1 and +2. The periodic test will carry 5, and the mathematics activities will carry 5. Total 10 marks for the first term. And for the second term, also the periodic test will carry 5, and the term and the evaluation of one maths activity plus Viva will carry 5 marks. For subjects like physics, chemistry, biology, computer science, the theory marks is 70, so the practical will remain 30. And in that, term 1 will be for 15 marks and term 2 will be for 15 marks. In term 2, 15 marks for the practicals. In case we are not able to do the practicals by calling the students to school, 10 marks will be for paper pen test related to the practical subjects, and 5 marks for the Viva OC with the internal and external examiners together. And for subjects like economics, business studies, accountancy, history, politics, which involve project work of 20 marks, only 1 project for the whole year will be conducted, but it will be divided into 2 terms. The process, the work will be divided into 2 terms for 10 marks each. And in languages, ASL will be conducted for 20 marks, 10 marks for each term. In 11th and 12th also, as the theory marks vary, the practical marks will vary accordingly. This is all about I've just given you a very brief structure about the internal assessment scheme released by the Central Board of Secondary Education.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much, sir, for enlightening us on that to a very brief note. My question to Madam Srividya Mauli. Madam, it is in the best interest of all our listeners. Will the MCQs being the option considered for both the terms, contribute to more stress in the students and teachers? Because making of MCQs for teachers, they find it a bit difficult, and students also, especially when it is conducted online. Will it in any way add more on the stress of our teachers and the student community? Madam, please.
At the outset, a warm good afternoon to everybody. Thank you for inviting me to share my thoughts on this panel. I deem it a great privilege and an honor. Some of the points I might be touching upon might be drawn from yesterday's webinar, which gave a lot of clarity, because before yesterday's webinar, the thought in my mind is how are we going to equip children for the MCQs if MCQs are going to be the way in which we are going to assess and award our certificates? Because as I saw in the chat box, people were saying a lot of students were very disappointed with the result this year. And, definitely when you hear that your performance is going to be assessed by this new MCQ pattern, anything new will always create some amount of anxiety, fear in both teachers, students, and parents, because we want a system to be very rational that would actually give the child a credible score, that the child would say, yes, I got what I deserved. But when we looked at the way in which the directors yesterday explained how the MCQs are going to be designed, I think, it is up to us as educators to understand and to take all our stakeholders on board with us, making them understand that in this pandemic situation where things seem so uncertain, children have been out of school for 18 months. And some states say that children might come back next week. Some states have said another 2-3 weeks later. But we still don't know. When there's so much of uncertainty around, the MCQs seem to be a ray of light at the end of the tunnel, saying, okay, here is going to be a system that will help the child to prepare, not actually regurgitate, which was the rote method of learning, but the key concepts which the child has understood, how it is able to apply these concepts in case studies, in assertion questions. Those are the modalities that are going to be adopted in these MCQs. The pattern very clearly was spelled out, would have 20% extra question, but it is up to the child to choose the 20 questions that it's going to answer, because the 21st questions, the responses, that is what is going to be taken into consideration for evaluation. There will be no negative marking. So practice will make them perfect. And we have to look at what are the patterns of questions that the board is suggesting. There are going to be components like simple MCQs. The simple MCQs will focus more on recall, understanding, of concepts. Then you have complex MCQs. And the assertion questions this year have exposed our children to some amount of complex thinking. It actually makes them critically review what they are reading and then make a choice as to what they conclude as, a fact. So there's not merely, you just see the question, you just pick a right answer and you code it and you walk out. There has to be a thinking process, because NEP says that we want the entire assessment to be holistic. So how are we going to make learning visible in a pandemic situation, which will also take into consideration the holistic development, the 21st century skills of children, helping them to be critical, creative thinkers, thinking out of the box, thinking with their multiple thinking hats on. So for all those, I think the kind of question, the assertion reasoning, the case-based MCQs. So there is a variety. It is not that you have a coding sheet and all 50 questions are going to be, all the questions for the 50 marks are going to be of the same, type. There is a variation. There are 4 options that are going to be provided. So the discerning capacity of the child, the ability to critically read and analyze the information and then process what the response is going to be. It may appear very stressful, but I think as educators, it is vested on our shoulders to see that we break it down into simple chunks that will help the child to say, yeah, I can do this with ease. Because a lot of times, when do we fumble? When do we make mistakes? It's not when we don't know the answer. It's only because we start getting anxious. So in a sense, you will see a lot of the 21st century skills being demonstrated in the entire response mechanism that will be visible when the child takes up the MCQ. Yes, the fact that the board says if we are not able to have a in-school exam, the second term also will be MCQs. The second term, we also have to prepare them for the descriptive answers. Right now, it appears very, very daunting to us as educators, because the child has to be in a state of preparedness for all modes till, the exams are completed. But the fact that CBSE has spelled out very clearly how the pattern is going to be, and yesterday the director announced that by 15th of August, the patterns would be available, the question banks will be available for schools on the academic website. That is very, very reassuring. And I think that should dispel some of the stress and fear that is there. Because MCQs, once you're absolutely thorough, you hit a jackpot. So it is very essential for children to be absolutely, because the portions are limited. So the limited portions, how do we equip our children? Because, for us also as educators to even, think of MCQ being the board exam is very, very kind of strange. But we have to, change is the only constant. And the way in which we equip ourselves and children, that is what is going to enable them to face the board exam in a stress-free environment, which is what I think the board has very, very well thought out and brought out this. Because last term, yes, when we moderated the result, there was a lot of confusion even in our minds, because as educators, very arbitrarily, based on the historic year score, we had to kind of look at how do we fit in children. But this, I think, is very empowering if we understand the spirit and we as educators are convinced and work towards empowering our children. That's what.
That's it. Though Madam's voice has been a bit intimidating and threatening for all of us, frightening for all of us, Madam herself in between has consoled us, saying that there is an answer to all the problems in the MCQ system as it is. Thank you very much, ma'am. With that, the first phase of this webinar or the panel discussion comes to an end. It is almost 25 minutes now. It will continue 20 more minutes. But dear audience, I am not a subject expert of all subjects, or not an expert of all subjects, but subject-specific questions. If you have any, prepare it now itself, note it down. Our expert panelists are ready to answer all types of questions that you are going to ask. 20 minutes is spared for that purpose at the end, after the 20 more minutes of our panel discussion. Jyoti ma'am, I would love to come back to you. NEP 2020 envisages transforming education from futile rote learning, that's what you meant, to involving competency-based education. SAFAL in that sense is quite new. How key features of SAFAL are going to help schools improve upon competency-based education? Ma'am, please.
Thank you very much. SAFAL, which has been introduced by CBSE for grade 3, 5, and 8 for the assessment of languages, mathematics, science, and EVS, is all about strengthening the assessment system. We are talking about improvement of schools. And when do we call that the school is improving? Only when we see the children associated with the school are improving or growing with their fullest capabilities. And it's not just in terms of scoring very high marks or grades. It's also about skilling. It's also about knowing more and more about the world. So this kind of assessment will provide children to grow up with critical thinking based assessment, critical thinking based learning, inquiry based learning, decision making based learning, or what we say analysis based learning. So we want our children to become great analyzers, observers, and we want them to grow with that analytical skills. So when we talk about the key features of this new initiative of CBSE, which we are calling as SAFAL, it clearly focuses or majorly focuses on competency-based assessment to monitor the progress of the children, not just in terms of whatever they have learned through rote memorization program. It's all about knowing about the clarity of the concepts, their understanding and applications of the understanding of the concepts. So it's very, very important that, as I said before, that the framework which goes for the assessment of a child at school level should give a clear picture to the school as well. Where do the school stand? Where does the school stand, and what are the possibilities to grow further? So if we look at the this 4.4 recommendation of NEP, it clearly says that the assessment system of any country should help students, parents, and teachers to evaluate and assess, and then to decide what can be done more. So assessment is through which with this kind of proposal or with this kind of assessment proposed, it is also not affecting the promotion of the child, because we are not assessing the child or testing the child just for the promotion to the next higher class. It is about giving them platforms and opportunities to learn as per their own area of interest and capabilities, and to know where do they stand and what is the road ahead. So students will not experience that exam pressure or the pressure of being pass or fail. When we say that improvement of the school, it is also directly related with conducive environment. It is also about a happy environment where the child grows without any fear and pressure and learns with best of his or her capabilities. So this assessment talks about the high quality of competency-based questions. As I mentioned before, that item writing competencies, some competencies, and then item writing is the key feature of this particular program initiated by CBSE, and it proposes about two kind of assessment. One is about an individual assessment where we are giving the feedback to the child, where we are gazing the child on certain parameters. It is also about this will be done through what we call individual assessment. Here, this individual assessment is going to help teachers, students, and parents to know about their teaching learning processes or the impact of their teaching learning processes and the learning system which is being. But if we talk about the school level assessment, the beauty of this program of CBSE is that the SAFAL envisions a kind of assessment which gives a roadmap to the school as well to move ahead. As of date, we have been just talking about feedbacks. We never, we are not fond of talking about feed forwards. So this is one such document which will provide the feed forward for our schools also, because through this system level assessments at regional, national, and international level, this will improve and assess the school system as well. And if I have to talk about in nutshell form about the kind of assessment, the evaluation of the school which will happen, it will provide the diagnostic data via school level progress. We are talking about two kind of progress cards. One is the holistic progress card, which we are calling a 360-degree holistic progress card for children, which CBSE is in process of developing, and very soon it will be tested with 50 pilot schools as per the announcement of CBSE. But at the same time, it gives a progress card for the school as well, which we have never experienced before, which we have never thought of before. And through this kind of progress card for one school, this will help the school to plan the resource allocation, which is very, very important, because once we know that where are the gap areas. These days we have been talking very high about learning gaps, but at the same time, there are certain gaps which always exist in a system, school system, but maybe we are not aware about, because there is no such instrument, there is no such tool available to base the assessment of a school. We are too much fond of talking about the assessment of children, but what about the schools? So it will help the school to look into the resource allocation. It will also provide a wonderful academic support to the schools to improve and perform better. And it will also inform community, because it will be in the public domain. It will go to the students, parents, and teachers. It will also inform all associates of the school or the community, you may say, and the parents about the school performance. Because many a times we feel that we are doing the best in our particular area of region or district, and why the school is not being recognized. So this kind of, this will be a sort of done through through a system which has been proposed through this SAFAL, and SAFAL will definitely nudge the education system towards the competency-based learning, as mentioned in this document by CBSE. If we look at the essence of this particular sentence, everything becomes very clear why SAFAL has been introduced. Thank you.
Exactly. Thank you. Thank you very much, ma'am. Online assessment, in the absence of a professionally customized application, web application, have put the credibility of the assessment at stake. Unikrishan sir, how does the board plan to ensure the credibility and validity in the internal assessments carried out by the schools? Over to you, sir.
Yes, sir. As far as I believe, this is going to be the most difficult aspect of all these things. How does the board plan to help schools to make the internal assessment more credible and valid? As we all know, the CBSE is in one end The students are at their home. The teachers are probably in the schools. And what mechanism the board has to ensure that, as they have announced, these aspects are going to be done with the credibility and validity. The first thing is that the board has issued a very detailed guidelines for the internal assessment project and ASL by their circular 51, and also all these things are very clearly explained in the curriculum. That's one thing. And secondly, the board has very clearly explained how the ASL or the project work is designed, or maybe the portfolio, or maybe the periodic test or the multiple assessment activities are designed, the steps involved, the rubrics for evaluation, everything has been very clearly explained in detail. The curriculum also does the same thing. For each component, there are explanations in the curriculum and also in the circular 51. This year, the CBSE also offers a provision for the schools to upload the marks of internal assessment after when the assessment is over at the end of each term. And CBSE instructs the schools to ensure that these assessments are reliable, fair, and transparent. Also, the assessment must be based on the evidences of the students' performance. CBSEs will definitely ask for these evidences to be produced when asked for, either by the regional office or by the CBSE. And we are also supposed to create a student's profile, maybe a portfolio, to keep these records in the digital form in the school, so that we will have a black and white evidence for the assessments that we have done, and also the way we have carried out this assessment. So with all these, I believe that the assessment, as the CBSE wants the schools to do, will be valid and credible.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much. Moderation is a word that will always give or create a smile on the face of a child. The term moderation. Madam Srividya, how do you think, how will moderation measures taken to ensure validity, reliability, and objectivity in assessment be ensured by the board?
Since MCQs are being considered for a major chunk of the evaluation in term 1 and possibility in term 2 as well, the MCQ in itself makes the child accountable for his or her performance. The moderation, I guess, would happen only in terms of the internal assessment, where we have to, as educators, be very fair and objective in adopting the rubrics. And those of us who were involved in uploading the marks for this year's board exams know that the tool that was given by the board was very, very well designed. Maybe we as educators took some time to get a hang of how to, upload the marks, how the marks in the second language was being, kind of arrived at. That kind of aspect we lacked clarity. But with 1 year's experience, I think the board is going to come up with, because very clearly the director said it's not the best of 20 responses. It's going to be the first 20 response, which means that AI will be adopted in some kind of measure, because today with the kind of technological advances, people have been speaking of how, handwriting can be analyzed and recognized by the machine, and you just have to feed the paper. The machine will tell you if it is so-and-so's paper. These kind of advances are there in the domain, public domain today. And I'm sure that a board as credible as CBSE. Like, you know, people always say that India's election is a lesson in democracy to the world. If you look at the way in which CBSE conducts its exams across not merely the country, but to neighboring countries as well. So there will be a mechanism, I'm sure, that the board is going to look at. It won't be arbitrary moderation, keeping the historic year as a reference point, because sometimes, you know, the historic year worked in some subjects to great advantage for children. And in some subjects, you know, one felt, oh, poor children, they didn't fare too well because their competencies and their skills were something very, very different. But here, the fact that everything is going to be based on maybe, you know, the choices you make in the MCQ, and how you're going to read your questions, analyze. So within the given 90 minutes, a lot of the thinking skills are going to be actually put to test. And that is, again, you know, a preparation for the higher level exams that children will have to face once they pass out of schools and go into institutions of higher education. Because world over, the kind of testing mechanisms are very different. I see a lot of questions being raised about English. How are we going to test writing? And again, to those who have raised that question, as an English teacher, it's my primary concern also. Like online learning, children actually, the art of writing seems to be, you know, something which we are not able to gauge. But, you know, when we have something to gain, we have to compromise on some aspects. So I think so far only for some subjects, the MCQ formula and pattern have been released, but by August 15th, everything is going to be made available to all of us, and we will have that time to carefully study. And I'm sure you know, platforms like Planet Panchatantra will have several meetings, and you know, there will be a lot of, because yesterday's was the first webinar where we heard of what is going to happen in terms of the MCQs. So I think we will get greater clarity about the moderation. We won't be as foxed as we were for the results of 2021. 22 seems to be much more, you know, on safe, known ground, because in 2021, we didn't know whether we are going to have exams, whether we are going to have, what is going to be the pattern we are going to follow. We were till the end in a state of confusion, in a state of panic, because suddenly you would think things are returning to normal and a new wave and schools shut down. So this, I think, is, you know, we are forewarned and we are forearmed how we are going to be, you know, preparing our students. And, you know, the road ahead seems a little clearer this year. That's what I would think. So the moderation as well will not be as daunting as last year.
Thank you. Thank you very much, madam. That is it. What, ladies and gentlemen, what we have actually put across is just the cap of the iceberg. There is a lot more to delve deep into. That is what madam has been highlighting upon. But still, for our consolation and comfort, we have organizations like Panchatantra Planet, CBSE, of course, on top, and all those arrangements. Ladies and gentlemen, constructive feedback together with all these will help us reach out to our stakeholders in a timely and more effective way. Please find time to fill the feedback form Dr. Bindu Mohan is going to share with you on the chat box. So please. Yeah, when sir is sharing that feedback form on the chat box, please remember, audience questions add a lot of value to a panel discussion. Friends, next 20 minutes or 25 minutes, is for addressing your questions, individual questions. Those who have got questions pertaining to the points discussed today are requested to click on the icon of raised hand. There is an icon for raised hand on your gadget. And once the moderator welcomes you to ask the question, you can directly choose the panelist of your choice, of course, and ask your question.
There is one Omana. She has raised.
Yeah, unfortunately on my system, I can't see the chat box.
No problem. Omana ma'am, please unmute and ask.
Sir, what about writing section in Hindi language in 10th class? How much mark will be provided?
This question is to which panelist, ma'am, please?
Anyone can answer, any one of the panelists.
Anyone can. Okay.
Sir, please.
To my end, may I?
Yeah, ma'am.
To my understanding, as Molly ma'am said, that by 15th August, things will be made more clear and detailed guidelines are in process of, CBSE is in process of framing the detailed guidelines, and it's better to wait for another 1 week. And by the time things will be very clear, as I said before, that CBSE is a highly proactive board, understands the concerns and issues of each and everyone associated with CBSE, whether we talk about teachers or school leaders. So it's better you wait for something more and things would be more clear.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you. Thank you.
Sir, is there any other question in the chat box or any hand raised?
Yeah, Sandeepa, please unmute yourself and put your question. Sandeepa, ma'am.
Hello, ma'am. Jyoti, ma'am. Am I audible?
Yes, yes.
Here. I just wanted to know, since I missed out yesterday's webinar, I'm not quite clear about the details regarding the MCQ exam pattern that was briefed yesterday. Can I have some highlights on that?
Is this question for me?
Anybody?
No, Srividya ma'am.
Yeah.
Yes.
If you actually click on, I think the talk is still available on YouTube. If you look, they had specified the different types of questions. There are simple MCQs, there's going to be complex MCQ, assertion reasoning questions, and case-based MCQs. So there are several types of MCQs, and I think each have a certain number of questions. So the pattern has been spelt out there. And I think with the question bank, when it comes on August 15, there will be a lot more clarity. We are only getting, a little anxious, I think, as of now. So I think we should wait. I think, patience sometimes pays off. Because when I saw the July 5th circular, I was also very anxious. How are we going to actually prepare children on this? But yesterday's webinar, I can tell you, gave me a lot of relief, gave me a lot of reassurance that it's very clearly spelt out. And when the director mentioned that, August 15th, it will be available. Because if you look at the presentation, they specify how many questions are going to be there. It was very visible in the skill-based subjects, not so clear in the others. But I think in the coming weeks, greater clarity will evolve in this, because we will be able to see how are they going to assess in languages, because senior secondary, it's only for history and political science that sample papers have been made available as yet. And for 10th, we don't have for science and social studies as yet. But all these are indicators that, work is in progress. And I think we shouldn't jump the gun. We should wait for the system to take its course. Like even the project, the 7 steps, how each step has to be carefully monitored, and how, the child has to be taken through the system. The webinar, I urge everybody to see the webinar, because that will actually give you a lot of reassurance and clarity. And of course, once, we still have questions, as Dr. Jyoti mentioned, we could always write into the board or share in fora like this and get clarification. So that is what I would think, we should just wait till August 15th.
Thank you, Srividya ma'am. Thank you.
Yeah.
Very much.
Yeah, Greta ma'am, you can ask the question. You can ask.
Can I add something here, if you permit me?
Yeah, of course, ma'am, Jyoti ma'am.
CBSE is also in process of framing FAQs with regard to all this. So very soon you will receive those FAQs, and most of your queries will be sorted out.
Okay, Greta ma'am, you can ask. I think Jyoti ma'am shared her point. Greta ma'am, are you here? Can you ask?
Good evening to all. My question is, am I audible, ma'am?
Yeah.
Oh, my question is, in science, they have asked 3 marks for first term and 3 marks for second term portfolio of science. So I want to know, is it the same portfolio to be carried out? And even in portfolio, there are 2 types. One is as per the subject enrichment, and one portfolio is of the student's portfolio of the child's achievement. So which portfolio we have to prepare in science? And is it the same portfolio? Then how is possible that the same chapter number 16 to be assessed as a portfolio in second term? It's real confusing. If you can give highlight, I'll be very grateful to all of you, sir.
Undiksha sir, can you take?
I'll answer this question, Radhakrishnan sir.
Yeah.
Portfolio is a year-long process. It's not for the first term or the second term, though we separately give marks in first term and second term. This is a continuous process, and the selected works of the students will be recorded and kept as evidences in the portfolio. And this shows the progress of the students for the whole academic year. And this need not be separated as a portfolio for the first term or portfolio for the second term. Only thing, as far as the work done by the students for the first term, we will evaluate how the portfolio has to be evaluated, as is clearly stated in the document, internal assessment document released by the CBSE, and it's also very clearly mentioned in the curriculum. So with that, we'll be able to do for the first term and separately for the first term, but the portfolio is a single record for the whole year as far as a single student is concerned.
Okay, thank you, Undiksha sir. Suresh sir, can we move to the next?
Yeah, we can, sir, please.
Sandeepa, can you unmute and ask question? Hello, Sandeepa ma'am. Are you here? Yeah.
I got to let down my hand. I had already asked the question.
Okay, you have already asked. Okay, fine. Then Kirti Jindal. Kirti Jindal, are you here? Kirti Jindal, are you here? No, she is not here. Priyadarshini ma'am, can you unmute and ask? Priyadarshini ma'am, can you please unmute and ask?
Sir, Kirti Jindal has posted in the chat box that she is unable to unmute.
Oh,
She can post the question there. Kirti ma'am, you can text.
also the question there?
Yeah.
We can check from the chat box then. Yes, there is a question. Is there any picture comprehension based questions in social science for grade 10th? Can any one of you answer that? Is there any picture comprehension based questions in social science for grade 10th?
The social science MCQ for 10th hasn't been released as yet, science and social studies. But looking at the textbook, there are a lot of visuals that are used, and there is a lot of discussion around the visuals in the textbook. So, I assume there will be a few visual-based questions, because you definitely in the case study kind of section you will have some visual based questions, is what my gut feeling is, looking at the 12th standard paper in political science and in history.
And another question, will class 10th project will be evaluated externally? Can anyone answer? Will class 10th project will be evaluated externally?
Radhakrishnan sir, in the webinar yesterday, the CBSE representatives informed that only the practicals will be evaluated with the help of the external examiner, and all the other things will be evaluated by the internal examiners.
Okay. Then another question, is there any comprehension based questions in social science for grade 10th? Can anyone take? Is there any comprehension based questions in social science for grade 10th?
What is the meaning of the comprehension based question? I didn't understand that.
If we can connect it with the Bloom's taxonomy, you can answer, sir. Comprehension.
I think in English, comprehension questions generally come in English.
No, I think it's like the passage. There's a passage given and your questions based on that. I think there will be questions like that in social studies.
Okay. Then another question connected to English language and literature. How will be the questions asked in MCQ in letter writing?
Radhakrishnan sir, this was one of the questions that was raised up yesterday also in the webinar. Okay. Because many English teachers are concerned about this aspect, like how writing skills can be tested by MCQ questions. The MCQ exam is going to be done at the end of the term, first term, and probably at the end of the second term, but there are ample opportunities for the students and the teachers to practice writing skills, and also to test writing skills during their internal assessment activities. So, and that's one thing. And secondly, the second answer given for this question was that the CBSE is planning to design such MCQ questions which will also be able to test the writing capacity of the students in the term and exams.
Yeah, okay, sir, thank you. Then Aditi is asking, will there be board exams in class 9th and 11th? How will MAP be assessed as MCQ? Identification only.
May I?
Yeah, ma'am. Jyoti, ma'am, you can take
CBSE's mandate is only for class 10th and 12th. But when we talk about scheme of management, 9th is related to 10th and 11th is related to 12th. So it's always good to follow the pattern of class 10th and 12th in class 9th and 11th as well.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's always
Excuse me,
recommended.
Excuse me, sir.
Yeah.
Excuse me, sir. I am Kamarajini from Nagarkoil, sir. I am
Okay.
having a question. I already sent it in the box. Could I ask you to Sri
Yeah,
Vidya,
yeah,
ma'am?
you can ask. You can
Sri
ask.
Vidya, ma'am. Actually, ma'am, you are rightly said understanding is concept is very important for this MCQ. My question is, ma'am, to train the children, is it mandatory to train the children only in MCQ by sending that worksheet and all other thing? Is it possible for us to give assertion question, critical thinking question by one sentence or 2 marks to write? They'll write something. In that way, is it possible for us to train the children to face MCQ, ma'am? Or is it mandatory to give only the MCQ pattern for training?
See,
Please, ma'am.
the end of the term, what the board is going to administer is an MCQ, ma'am. But
Yes, ma'am.
you do in your internal assessment, what you do in the course of teaching, because, you know, we are not looking only at the summative assessment. We actually, you know, assessment is something ongoing. So as a teacher, if you would like to give, you know, descriptive answers, if you would like to include samples of writing in your portfolio, all those things, I think there is flexibility. I would suggest you go through that template which is there in the academic site, because they have spelled out for each subject what will be the kind of assessment that the board is going to focus on at the end of the term. But we can always, you know, administer other forms of assessment. Why are we thinking that even in school we should have only MCQ, that we can't assess letter writing in our ongoing process? As an English teacher, for me, letter writing, what is important is the format, because that's where a major chunk of problem arises. So if we are able to get children to get at least the format right, today with everybody using MS Word suggests to you what is the kind of writing you have to do and filling in of details. So I think we are all getting very anxious prematurely. I think, we shouldn't think that MCQ is the only way forward, because even yesterday the question was raised, is this going to be the modality in subsequent years? And Dr. Joseph Emmanuel very clearly said, this is the, process for this year. How it will be in subsequent years will be based on feedback. And again, the board is going to take up a very, very detailed assessment of, children in grades 3, 5, and 8, and the gaps are going to be studied. All these will actually define the way forward, I think. And as Jyoti ma'am mentioned, we are always looking only at feedback. Feed forward is, I think, the way we need to think. We need to actually start looking at exams with a growth mindset. We are all trained in what we have been accustomed to. Now the blinders have been removed for us to look at other ways by which you can actually observe your child, document the child's progress, insist on what you want included in the portfolio. And I'll tell you, because we have been doing this 360-degree feedback and portfolios for the past 8 years, I can tell you that children have taken on the onus for their learning. And it is documented and it is available in the public domain. It has been published by Best Practices Institute. We have this, that's the reason why I'm speaking with a lot of assertion, as the moderator said, because sometimes, when you hear somebody says, no, this will work, it actually, kind of calms us, That's what I'm trying to do, because yesterday the webinar was a calming influence on. Somebody has asked, can you share the link? Maybe, you need to check out with your sahodiyas. They will be able to share, because I don't think I can post it on this chat box. So, it is available in the public domain. So
Okay, ma'am. Thank you.
Radhakrishnan, so we can take one more last question.
Yeah. Jyoti ma'am, can you answer this? There is a wonderful question. How will all the aims and competencies CBSE envision be achieved with this kind of assessment?
See, again, I would say we are getting more anxious about new things coming into. CBSE just introduced this SAFAL, and though this has been introduced only for class 3, 5, and 8, and it is coming as a pilot project on pilot basis with few schools, and then they are going to assess how is it working, what are the gap areas, how can we bend those gaps, and then it will be taken forward to all the CBSE schools. So it's too early to comment about how and what, because this is a proposal from CBSE, and CBSE is very much in tune or sync with NEP visions, as I said many times before. So this pilot project, if we talk about the first year of this pilot project, the pilot assessment is going to happen only with regard to English and Hindi. That means 2 languages only the CBSE is going to cover. And the mode of administration of this would be either offline, online. This is what CBSE has proposed in its document. And in the first year, CBSE also says that the question paper will be supplied to the schools for implementation through digital mode. And then schools, after evaluation, has to upload the data. So this is the pilot year. CBSE is also experimenting. CBSE is also setting the tone to bring this finally into the system. So this is wait and watch situation. And the feedback of pilot schools under this scheme will tell us more about how the scheme would help us to grow with competency-based learning system. Whatever CBSE has introduced as an assessment for board examination for 10th and 12th, we are again getting over worried about how projects, how portfolios, how MCQs. Today, the same discussion was happening with my teachers as well, and they were also same manner, very, very full of, they were full of doubts, and they had lots of queries regarding, say, I said, you do one thing, you speak about the proposed assessment format of CBSE with your students and ask them to start framing questions. You learn from your students. Maybe they will come up with more and more clarity about. I understand we need more clarity to come from CBSE, and it is on the way, and certainly CBSE will have more and more sessions onto that. But when we talk about the holistic development of a child, it may be done through any form of assessment. So we should not restrict ourselves to one way of assessing a child. Thank you.
Thanks a lot. So Suresh sir, you can take over the question answer session. We can wind up, I think.
Ladies and gentlemen, enlightened leaders and educators, thank you very much for making this Q&A session very, very interesting, involving, and engaging. Thank you so much once again. The best feature of any curriculum is its evolving nature. It keeps getting modified. Therefore, if at all we find the time we spend on this topic is insufficient, it is not accidental. Just like the curriculum, the features of assessment too should be adaptive. Therefore, discussions and deliberations should continue. Panchatantra Planet should continue with their volunteered responsibility to help them out. May I once more remind you all about the feedback form we have shared with you all. Please find time to do it up. Let's wind up this session proposing a word of thanks to all who have made this discussion much more interactive. Requesting Mrs. Sumita Mathu to do the honors. Mrs. Sumita Mathu is a teacher of 21 years of teaching experience. She is now the Center Director of Little Gems International School, Kochi. Ma'am, over to you.
So, I hope that I'm audible.
Yeah,
audible.
ma'am, very much.
Thank you so much. Yeah, knowledge is power and knowledge shared is power multiplied. We need a lot of power to implement the new national education policy successfully. Good evening, everyone. It's my pleasure to be a part of this panel discussion this evening, where there was an extremely productive discussion about the new trends in CBSE, the rationalized curriculum and assessment. We are all aware that there are numerous changes that have been made in CBSE curriculum and assessment pattern. CBSE has given us a golden opportunity to bring inquiry and student voice in our school education system. But the reality is that if it is not implemented properly, it's going to be more damaging to the system than enriching. But I'm sure that the knowledge and thoughts shared by our eminent panelists today will definitely help our educators to find the beauty of the new national education policy and will successfully reach each and every child to bring out the best in them. My sincere thanks to all the dignitaries and participants of this session for contributing to the core. I would like to thank the expert panelists, the Board of Directors of Panchatantra, eminent principals and educators who contributed in today's session. On behalf of Panchatantra Planet, may I take this opportunity to thank Ms. Jyoti Arora for sharing your views on the relevance between NEP and SAFAL. It was really good to hear about the measurement of learning and the upliftment of assessment system. Ma'am has also shared that the skill and competency-based education in our Indian education system is going to help our upcoming youth of India. Thank you, ma'am, for being here with us this evening and sharing your thoughts. I would like to extend my sincere gratitude towards Mr. K. Radhakrishnan. Sir has shared his views on the special scheme of internal assessment according to NEP. Sir has tried to brief about the student portfolios, elaborated the grading system and the periodic test. Also, there was a mention of the mechanisms or the systems the CBSE is planning to come up to maintain the credibility and validity of the internal assessments. We thank you, sir, for taking out time from the busy schedule and sharing your knowledge and experience with us today. Thank you. Moving on to Ms. Srividya Mauli. I would like to thank Madam for explaining the new MCQ pattern in a very simple language. With your permission, I caught the statement, the ray of light at the end of the tunnel. Yes, of course, though there is darkness now, but we are approaching the ray of light slowly. Ma'am also tried to make it clear that the introduction of MCQ will definitely break down the big burden of assessment into small parts, the MCQs. Thank you, ma'am, for explaining it in a very positive way. And I'm sure that the teachers who are present here are also clear about it. Now, I will take the opportunity to thank Mr. Suresh, who has been kindly accepted the invitation for being the moderator for today's session. It was really great to start the session with your welcome speech, giving an overview of the event. He has guided the session discussion towards a fruitful direction, actually. We were all able to explore and understand the several aspects of the topic. Thank you, sir, for being with us and directing and helping everyone. Our sincere thanks to Mr. Robinson and Mr. Abhilash for technical support to manage the Zoom platform during the session and designing all the promotional materials. Without their help in this event would have not run as successfully as it did. I thank Mr. Radhakrishnan and Panchatantra Planet to organize such inspirational and informational sessions to nurture and develop the talented teaching community. Thank you, sir. May I request all the participants to fill in the feedback form before you leave the meeting. Thank you all once again for the patient listening and the wonderful evening. Have a great evening. Thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
So thank you all the panelists and moderator. Thank you so much from the end of Panchatantra Planet, all the board of directors. We bow in front of you because everything and all the participants also, we thank once again. We hope the panelists will be back to us once again for next discussion. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. It was a pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you.